views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try when...
Well, this is Patty Hunter, Patty's Page. Today, my special guest is Rod Taylor. He is El Presidente, or the leader of the political Christian Heritage Party in Canada.
Yeah.
Basically BC or something like that, eh?
Yeah. I live in British Columbia, and we have a provincial wing here as well, Christian Heritage Party of BC. But I am serving right now and speaking to you as the leader of the Christian Heritage Party of Canada.
Today, we'll be talking about gun laws. Okay, Bill C-11, Maid, M-A-I-D, for the mentally ill and possible election, plus other topics. So Let us start. So welcome to my show, sir.
Thanks very much. Nice to be back here again. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you're a good person to talk to, and you're doing your right job with the political party, CHP. So let's open. What do you mean by Canada is going to be placed under the UN control?
Well, the World Economic Forum, the UN, the WHO, World Health Organization, these folks are working together to have a universal kind of a program for all world citizens. And our Prime Minister here, Justin Trudeau, is right in line with them. He's highly respected by, not by the people of Canada, not by some of the MPs in Europe, but by Klaus Schwab, the head of the World Economic Forum. They regard him as a protege because he's on the younger side, although he's getting older as well, but he's on the younger side, and they want him to bring Canada into the fold so that we have world government instead of national government, so that the people of the world would be under one roof, so to speak. And of course, that might be okay if you had really good people at the top, but when you have evil people at the top, then it's going to be bad for the citizens of the world. And we don't think that Canada should be, bowing and kowtowing to a world government, and neither should the U.S.
So this is called One World Order.
Yeah, it's come by different names, New World Order. I think every dictator through history has had the idea of getting the entire world under their control. None have ever succeeded yet. Go back to the Caesars and, Alexander the Great and Genghis Khan and different ones. Hitler, of course, a notable example, and Stalin wanted to bring the world under their fold. Yeah. And now they're using tools that did not exist 20 years ago, digital identity. And now, of course, we've just come through, or are still coming through, this COVID situation. But we saw a lot of things happen during COVID where they brought in mandatory medical procedures and enforced, like you had borders closed. The Canada-U.S. border was closed in the sense that you had to have the vaccination and show ID or be quarantined. And there's a huge financial cost to all this. But the bigger cost is the loss of freedom for
Yes.
citizens in Canada and the U.S. We're used to having freedom of speech, freedom of movement, and freedom to choose what we want to do with our own bodies. And they're trying to take that away from us. Hopefully, the citizens of our countries will not allow that to happen.
I wonder how we'll be able to combat that. Vote the wrong people out and the right people in.
Well, that's yeah, we would love to see that happen because we think there's some very good people in Canada that could do a much better job. But Canada, with 10 provinces and 3 territories, we are a confederation of provinces and territories, but we operate under a federal government, which is headed by our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And he has an extraordinary amount of power. He has accumulated to himself and usurped a lot of power. And in Canada, we have a unique arrangement between the federal government and the provinces regarding health care. Health care, education, and welfare are all provincial matters of jurisdiction, but we have gotten used to subsidized, socialized health care with the federal government paying a lot of the cost for healthcare, or some of the cost, I should say. And right now, our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, is trying to impose digital ID across the country using those healthcare dollars as a bargaining chip. He's trying to get the premiers to the table to agree to submit the citizens of each province to a national digital ID, and then he's going to hand them the money for the health care. So it's a devious system. And unfortunately, I don't know if we don't have that many premiers who are that bright on these issues. Some will go for it. He's dangling the carrot. And of course, if the carrot doesn't work, then he'll probably would use a stick and would deprive a province of the funding that they normally would get if they don't cooperate with this plan. So we really are in a desperate situation. Alberta may be the only province. Danielle Smith may have the chutzpah to stand up to that and say no. But many of the premiers have gone right along with the Prime Minister on these mandatory vaccinations, even when the evidence is out. I'll leave it there for now, but this is his latest move to usurp control over provincial matters and over the citizens of Canada, to try to force everybody into one mold.
He reminds me of his father.
Well, his father did a lot of damage in his time, Pierre Trudeau. And one thing that came in under Trudeau, we've talked about this on your program in the past, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We have one living signatory of that document. That's former Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador. That's Brian Peckford. And he is speaking out about the abuse of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms that he's seen under this government and under the provinces, frankly, as well. And seems like those that have control, that are at the controls today in Ottawa, do not seem to be listening to this man who's the last living signatory of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So, which, as we've said before, I'll just mention it again, our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, it's the equivalent of our Constitution. It's a part of our Constitution, says Canada is founded on principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law. So we are founded on biblical principles, and our current Prime Minister and many of those working with him are completely ignoring that.
It's sad. Gun laws.
Gun laws. Well, you go through the same thing in the States regarding gun laws. There's a lot of crime taking place, violent crime, and I think there's many reasons for that. But of course, this is an old saying. I heard it when I was a kid. Guns don't kill people, people kill people. And when guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns. These kind of statements was absolutely true. And every time there's a shooting, the Prime Minister, and in your case, I think your president and many of your politicians down there think that the way to stop violence is to take away guns. And really, there's many murders take place with knives, bombs, burning. There's strangling. There's all kinds of things that happen due to human sinfulness, selfishness, and guns are a tool up here, especially. There's a lot of hunters in Canada, and actually having a gun for self-defense, even against wildlife, but sometimes against human
Wildlife.
violent people who would want to injure you or your family, take away your stuff. And so we support the concept of self-defense, but the best defense would be raising the next generation to honor and respect human life and to honor and respect their fellow man. And that's not happening in Canada today.
No.
We kill 100,000 babies a year by abortion. We've killed something like 31,000 Canadians with Maid, which is medical assistance in dying. They call it MAID.
Why was that put together?
Yeah, so MAID, that's a euphemism for assisted suicide. And the government now is pushing and encouraging people to consider assisted suicide rather than palliative care or health care that could help prolong their life. So,
they want to save money, don't they?
It's a lot of it is about money. When people are past their, really productive years, they're retired out of the workforce, health care costs begin to go up. As we get older, we do need more health care, but the older generation has earned that, and it's been part of the plan, our socialized Medicare system here in Canada, socialized medicine. The idea was we're all going to help each other out through taxation. And when someone needs medical help, they can get it. Well, now the only thing they want to help you do is bump you off so that you don't consume any tax dollars. They're busy spending them in other ways.
That is so not right.
Yeah. One thing I mentioned to you, so the medical assistance in dying came in 2016 in Canada, and the percentage of people dying through medical assistance or through assisted suicide has gone up each year. In British Columbia and in Quebec, two of the provinces that are kind of the worst case scenarios, almost 5% of the deaths taking place are through doctor-assisted suicide.
What's with the mentally ill? They're zeroing in on them?
Well, the government, this Trudeau government, was wanting to add mentally ill to the category of the population that would be eligible to receive medical assistance in dying. They backed off because there was an outcry about it, and I wish there were more outcries, more people willing to speak up, and especially more people willing to take their votes away from this corrupt government. Because obviously when there's enough public pressure, they have to back off. So they have postponed. They were going to be adding mentally ill to the category of people that could be bumped off by doctors, but they had to, they've postponed it. It's still on their agenda. It just has been pushed back a little bit further. You know how they say, well, the public's not quite ready for it yet. In other words, they're going to push their agenda until they get their way.
Unfortunately. Yeah. How about the physically disabled?
Well, the physically disabled are already eligible. They have categories like for physical suffering and for mental suffering, mental anguish. So people, if they have a what the medical system would consider an incurable illness, they move into a category where they can make that decision, and the government in many cases is encouraging them to do so. When they brought it in, it never was a good thing. It's never a good thing to be killing innocent people, even sometimes when they feel depressed and so on.
Yeah, they have no right to do it.
Yeah, but when they brought it in, the idea was it would only be a small group of people who are suffering intolerably and are near the point of death. And that's what much of the public thinks it is. But now it's been, one guy was going to take his life because he was too poor to afford groceries. And, he just...
Any excuse?
Yeah. So, but in his case, a bunch of people got together and provided food for him. So he decided it was worth living after all. But these are the kind of things that used to prompt the old-fashioned suicide, the hangings, the jumping off a bridge, shooting oneself. And the government always said it was trying to prevent suicide. Now it's encouraging suicide under controlled circumstances.
When did that become that way? What year? In the 60s, 70s? What?
Well, 2016 was when medical assistance in dying was first brought in, and they were supposed to look at it after 5 years and examine what was happening with it. And they didn't even wait 5 years before adding new provisions. They just can't. A lot of it is about money, I'm sorry to say. But back to this public outcry business on that particular topic, it also applied to the gun legislation.
Mm.
Mr. Trudeau was bringing in, he has a bill C-21, which is basically going to make it illegal or impossible to acquire handguns in Canada. Of course, there's a lot of outcry about that. Essentially wants to make handguns illegal. But they, at a last minute, after they had passed it on some levels, at the last minute, they added amendments that would have made it even more disastrous. And that was, they wanted to ban a lot of hunting rifles. If it could accept a clip that would have more than 5 bullets, then they would that rifle would be illegal. So that a lot of hunting rifles used in Canada, like the Enfield 303, it takes a clip that'll hold up to 10 bullets. So all of a sudden, those would have been illegal. Well, they did get a lot of feedback on that, and they've had to withdraw those amendments. So, I mean, I guess public pressure can help if you get enough of it.
It sounds like the government's trying to control everyone in our country home.
Yeah.
And it's not right.
No.
It's supposed to be for us. We're not supposed, be for them.
Yeah. In the U.S., you have we the people,
That's right. You should do
and in Canada, it's supposed to be government by the people, right? Abraham Lincoln's famous statement during his time in the States as president, of the people, by the people, for the people. And instead, it's become something that is a government by the elite, ruling over the working class and the less advantaged, right?
Yeah, that's bad. That's real bad. Now there's drugs that are being legalized. Is that me, or is it true?
That is true. In British Columbia, we call BC, I live in BC, but we call it the left coast. It is, we have a socialist government in British Columbia, an avowedly socialist government. They call it the New Democratic Party, but there's not much democratic about it. And it's really not new either. It's old socialism repackaged in a language that sells to the public. But they have made hard drugs, legal in BC with the approval of the Prime Minister. By the way, they had to get an exception to national drug laws. So heroin, cocaine. If you are if the police find you with a small quantity of heroin or cocaine, you're not in trouble. Of course, we have what they call safe injection sites, and have had for years in Vancouver, where drug addicts could go and shoot up, under supervision, as opposed to in a back alley somewhere. but this has been coming for a long time. Of course, marijuana is legal in all of Canada, and this is a trial balloon. I think the Prime Minister sort of told BC, you go ahead and try this out. If it works there, it'll work. We'll implement it across the country.
That's another way of controlling the people, not
Exactly.
having them be able to think clearly.
Yeah.
Ah,
It takes them out of the workforce as well, because when you become heavily addicted to drugs, you don't have much interest in showing up for a 9-to-5 job.
And it fries the brain too.
Yeah. So
baby boxes.
Baby boxes, yes, and thank you for drawing my attention to that. The Gems for Gems in Calgary operating these, what do they call them? Hope's Cradle, which is a place where a woman, a mother could leave her baby in safe care, as opposed, there's been these cases where, women in desperate situations, they have a baby and they don't know what to do with it. They don't feel competent. They have all kinds of other struggles. Maybe it goes back to these drugs in many cases as well, drugs and poverty. But anyway, they have just abandoned babies, like sometimes in a garbage bin, and the baby's dead. So this wonderful thing in Calgary, well, in Strathmore, they've got a place where women could go in, leave a baby in safekeeping anonymously, so there's no shame in it, but the baby will be looked after and adopted, and that's a good thing.
Like we have that here in Indiana, Woodburn, Indiana. Monica Kelsey, she started Safe Haven baby boxes. So, and her name, the founder of Gems for Gems, is Jordan Guildford. She is very wonderful person, and she's doing exactly what Monica is doing, and she puts all her heart and soul into that, saving babies' lives.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And every place where anyone can do anything to alleviate suffering, to protect life, and to promote the well-being of their fellow citizens, my hat is off to them. I did watch that clip of Jordan Guildford speaking about the baby boxes there, the Hope's Cradle. I think it's a marvelous thing they're doing, and I really appreciate. I spoke last week, and we just posted it this week, an interview with Patrick Netzer way up in Nunavut.
Oh.
He and his wife Mona are cooperating, working through Campaign Life Coalition, and they are providing goods and services for young pregnant women and young moms in Nunavut. And so they're helping them with some of the necessities of life, things that babies need. And anyway, like I say, of alleviating suffering and giving hope to people is just marvelous.
This transgender stuff, adults are doing it to them. I wish that wasn't here.
Well, yeah, it's a confusion, and it is causing a lot of deep destructive actions and behaviors on young people. It's being pushed on them in the school system. Some of them are making the unfortunate decision to take hormone blockers, and even some to have surgery, and many of them regret it afterwards. There's a high suicide rate among those who have done a surgical transition. They can't get back to where they were. It's not like changing the color of your hair. It's a physical change that usually makes them sterile, and they live to regret it. And so I spoke last week a couple of weeks ago with a young man, 16 years old, in one of the schools in Ontario, and he went to the principal complaining. It was actually a Catholic school, and he was raising the problem. There are boys going into the girls' washroom there.
Oh boy!
And the principal didn't care about it. He told him, well, if the girls start complaining, I might listen. Well, then he brought one of the girls in, said, I'm very uncomfortable to have boys in the girls' washroom. And the principal said, basically, that he still didn't care. And so this young
Catholic,
fellow,
right?
yeah, this young fellow, the Josh Alexander, organized a walkout to protest the situation. But then he got disciplined by the school. He was given a temporary exclusion. They said it wasn't a punishment, but actually he wasn't allowed to attend his classes.
Oh, shoot.
Not allowed to attend school. So last week he went in and tried to get into his classes, and they called the police, and he was arrested. So that's the situation. But thank God for young people who are willing to stand with us on these moral issues. Their moral issues very important, and if we abandon them to this gender confusion, they're going to have a sad life ahead of them.
Adults are forcing this on children.
Yeah.
They should be disciplined, not the children.
Exactly.
And now, finally, Bill C-11. We talked about that. What is that?
Bill C-11 is another of the Trudeau government's terrible pieces of legislation. It is not law yet, but it has gone through the House of Commons once and through the Senate once, similar to in the States, you have the House of Representatives and the Senate. We have the House of Commons and the Senate. Yeah. And it is an online censorship bill. One thing it purports to do is to promote Canadian content. So some of the good American content that we have online now we might be deprived of that. It also would work with social media to limit what we can share online. There's the government does not want the truth being told. A lot of this came out during the COVID crisis, where the government, claimed that a lot of things that were being said was misinformation. I think the government was guilty of that, actually, in a much greater degree. But they don't want people talking about gender and about abortion and pro-life stuff and about
anything negative that makes them feel uncomfortable.
So they don't want the truth being told, and of course, when they put these bills together, they frame it as if they are protecting Canadian content and things like that. But it's a Trojan horse to control what people can say. So if we lose free speech in this country or in your country, the future is very dismal. That's communist tactics. That's Hitler's tactics. Right. So right now, the Senate has added a couple of amendments to that Bill C-11. So that means it has to go back to the House, House of Commons, and the amendments probably help it a bit. It makes it a little less onerous. It would remove some personal content from under the Broadcasting Act. So under broadcasting, things are really restricted what you can say. But so far under social media, and on your own websites, you can say, right now you can say most of the things that you'd want to say. I mean, we still have to be careful, even when sharing the truth on YouTube, for instance. YouTube might ban you. Twitter is a little better now under Elon Musk, but there's still I still know people who have been banned from Twitter for speaking the truth. So this battle for free speech, that's the front line right now for all the issues we've been discussing. If we lose free speech, we lose the ability to fight for our other rights.
Humans from the womb to the tomb have the right to life and freedom.
Yeah.
No one else has that except for the Lord himself, God. He is in control, even though human beings don't think so.
That's right. Yeah. And this is a worldwide phenomenon. It's not just in Canada and the U.S. This attempt for world control is a real thing. I just listened to an interview with a wonderful member of parliament in the nation of Finland. Her name is Päivi Räsänen, She's been a member of Parliament for 26 years, and she is facing 3 charges against her, criminal charges, and for posting a picture of a Bible verse having to do, the Apostle Paul, his comments in Romans 1, his comments on sexuality. And so she's standing firm. She's going through this case, and it's a very interesting times we live in, when so much of the world has come under the sway of the evil one. It seems like governments are just filled with those who want to control others, and it's the times we live in, but we have to stand strong and stand firm, speak for the truth.
I'm telling you, what would you like to say to my audience before we leave this interview? Well,
I would like to say to your American audience, and I'm sure you have some Canadians that listen as well, that we are in a difficult time, and it is time for every citizen, especially those who call themselves Christians, to stand up for the truth, because if we lose that ability, we will see our country. We're kind of in a tailspin now, but it will accelerate if we lose our free speech. So every good citizen, continue to speak up, talk to your school boards, talk to your elected representatives, stay with your church. Make sure your church continues to speak the truth and not get it watered down with basically liberal talking points. God is on the throne. He's a good God. He loves people. He cares about the future, and he has good plans for each one of us, plans to prosper us and not to harm us. But we may be going through some tough times, and we'll need his help if we're going to survive. So stay strong, stay firm, and love one another. Speak in love always. We must not fall into the habit of blaming others for our problems.
Forgive.
But yeah, and keep hope, because God is on the throne, and in the end, he is victorious. You read to the end of the book. We win in the end if we stay faithful to our wonderful Creator.
Jesus is Lord. And
He
that's
is Lord.
so. He is risen.
There's that wonderful verse from 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven. I will forgive their sin and heal their land. So there is a responsibility on God's people to bow the knee, to be faithful, and to be courageous, not to give up, not to lose hope, but to trust in the one who has all things under his control.
And this is Patty Hunter saying good evening, good morning, or whenever this is shown. Thank you, Mr. Taylor, Rod Taylor, one of my favorite politicians in Canada. Hello, a Christian Heritage Party. And may that spread all the way over from province to province and become the way it should be. Yeah. God bless you.
Thank you, and God bless you. God bless all your listeners and viewers, and we'll see you another time. Thank you, Patty, for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
God bless you.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love. God is with us always, for the rest of our lives.